Well, again, appreciate having an opportunity to be with you again. My name is Fred Whitford. I'm with Purdue University with the Extension Service. And for many of you, I've been in your conference for many years. So this one's going to be a little bit different. And what we want to do is examine your insurance coverage. And my whole goal here is to talk about some of the key parts that people are confused on the insurance policy. And then secondly, to have you check with your insurance agent, okay? And so the question then becomes, do you know for sure if you're covered and for how much? And the answer is for most of us, no. We know what the premium is and we complain enough about that, but we typically don't know or don't remember. So if I was to ask you, are you covered for a fire? And you at your place of business, and you would say, sure, I am. But if I ask you again, what happens if you have homeowners insurance and you're running out of your basement, or you're running out of your probably your garage, you're running your business out of that, and the fire is started because of that. Okay. uh, so I would ask you, are your trucks covered? And you would say absolutely. And you would say, well, that's why I have insurance. But what happens if you're using a personal vehicle to operate your business? You're paying for personal insurance instead of business insurance. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about that distinction between personal and business. And goodness, I figured out, my best guess is 50% of the people in this state either have no insurance or they're underinsured for what we need. They take the state minimal. So, so if somebody was to hit you and destroy your $50,000, $60,000 truck, your boat, your trailer, uh, would you have enough to pay for it? That's going to be the question for that one.
With this trailer attached to his truck.
White trailer, says Firmanite in orange and black.
But before he leaves, he stops and gets out to look around.
He saw we had two other utility trailers here.
About 15 minutes later, the man comes back for more.
I guess he knew there were cameras. He's wearing a camo mask and gloves, and doesn't appear to be in any real big hurry. Kind of spooky looking.
He attaches the trailer to his truck, leaves, and returns another 15 minutes later. He does the same thing all over again. Employee Lee Jordan says the three trailers together are worth about $10,000.
Pretty significant loss for us.
The company
So
is
my
offering
question then-
$500 per trailer.
My question then is, would your trailers be covered under your policy? Okay. Again, and we're going to
Caught
cover
on
some
camera
of
but
these
not caught yet.
in more
Two men
detail.
run off with thousands of dollars worth of work equipment from a Chula Vista construction site. 10 News reporter Rena Nakano spoke to the local contractor, who says the loss affects the entire community.
Take a look at your screen. Really, take a good look.
Obviously didn't know that there was a camera.
His mug captured clear as day on Tuesday at 2:15 a.m. as police say he stole work equipment out of this trailer parked on Palomar Street in Chula Vista.
The current loss we have.
Dennis Campos says the project manager contracted to build out the new Chula Vista bus lane.
Loss was anywhere between $5,000 and $6,000.
The men first tried to get away with the entire trailer, but what stopped them was this tire lock.
They could only get to about the first inch or so, and they stopped.
So he moved inside.
When they opened the door, they had their flashlight on.
Notice he says they. Here's why. The first man looks around, scanning the contents of the trailer, but when he turns toward the motion sensor camera, he sets off the light. Gotcha. Panicked, he goes to get his accomplice. He turns around the camera, but here's the thing. By calling his buddy,
We got the other guy's face on camera.
in the next few minutes, they ransack the trailer, all the while holding onto the surveillance camera. After setting up the alarm, they made off with a hydrostatic pump, a new generator, and special order brass components. But during their escape, they threw down the camera with their...
And so again, the question is, if you have equipment that's stolen, or does your insurance policy cover it? These are kind of questions we're going to talk about. And if, in this case, your trailer comes unhooked and rams this truck, do you have coverage to repair that person's truck and or to pay for any sorts of hospitalization when your trailers come off and people are either killed or sent to the hospital. Some of this is going to be in the millions of dollars worth of claims. And then we look at things that's only happens ever so often. So a person is making applications to these area with their, and they're allegedly the boats are damaged by the chemical that's being applied. That was the allegation, and that the hulls of these boats were reacting to the process. Um, if that would have in fact been true, and it turned out to be not true, but if that was in fact true, would you have coverage from the use of your chemicals? And we're going to come back to this one specifically. Would you have coverage if you're doing a lake, a pond, or something, and the fish are all dead? And this is just one of the more unique ones we've been involved with, where the guy lined up all of his big fish just to show the extent of the damage. That's a lot of trouble to show something for dead fish, but when people have ponds, they love their fish. And then obviously we all know that we have coverage when we go to court, but what I'm trying to make sure is that we have coverage to pay for other things as well. All right. So we're going to turn to insurance for help on all of these matters. And again, I'm going to say it over and over. Have you really sat down and talked to your insurance agent? Because all of these kinds of issues do come up, and we want to make sure that we're covered. For the majority of us, what we typically consider is the time at premium. We complain about what it costs for insurance, and then we write a check, we send it in, and we're done. Not really knowing how much coverage we have, because we never sat down with your insurance provider to get a clear understanding. And we don't have to memorize a bunch of stuff. We just need to be clear at the time with the insurance agent that I've got coverage at levels that I feel comfortable with. Okay. So here is why you need to know what's in, generally speaking, with your agent in your policy. Insurance is agreeing to pay some risk. And as you can see in the policy, we agree with you in return for your premium payment to provide insurance subject to all of the terms of this policy. And this is where it gets confusing. You pay the premium, but you don't know the terms of your policy, and I'm no different. So what I do is I go and talk to the insurance agent to make sure that this is what I'm doing. Am I covered? Am I covered? Am I covered? Now, so what I'd like to see you do, if you're listening to this, is take out a pen and paper, and I want you to write down some questions you can't answer, and use these as basically as a benchmark to ask your insurance agent. All right. So we have business insurance and we have home and auto insurance, right? And those are totally different. So I'm going to ask the question, and obviously the difference is your home is a whole lot cheaper than it is for the business. The insurance company is taking on more risk for your business, your structure, and or your vehicles out upon the road. And so you're going to pay more for that coverage. And so here is one. Does your home insurance cover the damages when your business is being run out of your home? I'll make some general statements. I can't know the tens of thousands of insurance companies. So I'll make these based on my experiences with the ones that I've worked with. And so the first thing to know is the answer is no. You don't have insurance. And so now this is worth asking, because if you have a fire that starts from, let's say, your business side of your home and it damages your home, would you have coverage? Does your auto insurance cover your personal vehicles? So you use personal vehicles as part of your business and you have an accident while doing your business. And the answer is no. Personal vehicles are not covered by, is not covered when you operate them as business unless you've modified your insurance. The best example of this are the people that deliver pizza. A friend of mine had a kid, one of his kids had an accident and delivering pizza. When they filed the claim, the insurance denied it because the vehicle was being used for business. Same thing with the people, cabs that are using their vehicles to pick people up. That is a business use of a personal vehicle, no insurance unless they've talked to their insurance company. Care, custody, and control. That simply means that the insurance company, that's an exclusion, uh, which basically says that they are not going to pay for mistakes that you make on property that you have under care, custody, and control. So they're basically not going to cover you for your mistakes on that property. This is pretty important. I don't want that exclusion. I want to know that if I make mistakes on somebody's property, that it's covered. And so in this case, you just take it off and you pay a few extra bucks. And again, a lot of this is just a few bucks. And so an example would be here, not in your line of work, but I'm out pushing, I'm out pushing here. We're pushing a parking lot and we're pushing snow, and a chunk of ice comes off and runs through the doors and just tears the front doors apart. That would not be covered if you had the care, custody, and control exclusion, because that was property that's under your care. So just get that removed. Most every policy has a herbicide and pesticide exclusion. Basically, they're saying that they're not going to cover it if the damage results from that. Um, and so the question would be maybe a fish kill, a drift would be an example. If you're doing a pond or a lake and you drift up on somebody's property, and those kinds of things. Again, you can take that off. It costs very little to get it off, and so that you, in fact, if you looked at both of those, you would be on somebody's property. If you damaged it, you would have coverage. And if you did it because of herbicide and pesticide, you would also have it on that property as well as drifting off. And then the last one is something that's kind of changed lately, is the pollution exclusion. Every policy says we're not responsible for pollution. And that would be spilled chemicals, and let's say that the fire department added water to your fire and it moved the chemical out. Here lately, that used to be such an expensive endorsement. In other words, we would get rid of that exclusion by adding things that are called endorsements. We're going to add back to the policy. A friend had one pollution added, and I was actually surprised how inexpensive it was compared to what it was just 10, 15 years ago. Okay. This is a big one for me. It's one that I bring up all the time, is trailer coverage versus the auto. So if my trailer stays connected, is the trailer repaired and contents replaced if there's an accident? And the answer is typically not. We don't make repairs on trailers if it stays connected. The only thing that we have coverage for is liability, any sort of the liability issues that take place. So if it stays connected, your trailer and your contents are not going to be replaced. Do I have coverage if my trailer disconnects? Well, this is a great question to ask, because the answer is, and at least from my experience, if the trailer comes off, you have no coverage. So whatever it hits, like we saw that boat hit that truck, you would be paying for that out of your pocket because it's no longer part of the covered vehicle. So what you're going to see here is, will you repair my trailer and replace my tools if they're stolen, like we saw in some of those videos? And the answer is, again, no, unless you have coverage on your tools. And it's a strange name. It's called marine. It's a marine policy. And if you have a policy on your trailer. So many will have policies on the trucks and their trailers and the tools, if that's important to you. And obviously, do I need to video my equipment and tools? The answer is yes, because if something is stolen, you want proof, and that video is excellent proof of that. Loaning out trucks. If you loan out your trucks and your equipment and there's an accident, the insurance typically follows the vehicle. So if I loan my truck to you and there's an accident, my insurance is going to be responsible. Again, you want to see if you can alter that if that's important. This is a big one here: uninsured, and underinsured motorist. What happens if I'm hit by an uninsured motorist? With half the people being underinsured or no insured, you can kind of see that that's a huge issue, at least in this particular state. I assume that in your state it would be no different. Typically, we use the least amount because it reduces the coverage. So if I had a truck that was totaled and a trailer that was totaled, or a boat that was totaled, and it would be 45,000, and somebody had the state minimal, they would pay the state minimal, and you would pick up the rest. So the question is to ask, if I'm hit by an uninsured or underinsured, then am I willing to pay that difference? If not, you might look at the premiums. In addition, you want to make sure on your policy that you have underinsured and uninsured that's going to cover the property, but also the health, two parts, so that if I am hurt and hospitalized and or a passenger is hurt or hospitalized by one of these people, then I want to make sure I have coverage. And so if you think about all of these risks, if I was to ask you how much coverage you currently have, most of you would say $1 million. And $1 million today sounds like a lot, but in actuality, it's not very much. And so one of the things you can do to really protect yourself, it's called an umbrella policy. And what this policy means is that whatever your base policy, the one that you spend a lot of money on, you can add using increments of $1 million and $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, which means then that you could add at relatively cheaper prices, much cheaper actually. You can build up your policy to be $5 or $6 million, which is typically what it's costing when somebody's killed today, maybe sometimes higher. An umbrella policy is a cheap way of providing you that coverage in the unlikely event that something serious takes place. And then you might also consider this. You work very hard for where you're at in your business, your personal life, your savings, your investments. If you are running your business basically without any sort of corporate structure, then you are going to be personally liable for whatever damages and harm you do to other people. So, so for instance, if somebody is killed and the judgment is $5 million and you only have $1 million worth of insurance, the insurance pays the one, you pay the four. Now, if you had an umbrella policy, you would be covered. But if not, basically, they could take almost everything you've worked for in your life. I'm not arguing against that. I'm just saying that's the fact. So what a lot of people have done is to get away from this personal liability is to set up a corporation. Lawyers can do it and get it done correctly. You can set up your corporation to where the corporation is just like a person, and that corporation could be responsible, and that therefore you could protect some of your assets. So the idea was, and I believe this talk's going to be made available on the notes with the question. If you had to stop and say, God, am I covered? Well, that's pretty serious. I should know. And so if the answer is, I'm not sure, then you're going to need to talk to your insurance agent sooner than later. And when I mean sooner than later, I mean making an appointment with them to go over your policy in detail, thinking about those questions that I have in this presentation. And what I always hate is don't ask what you are covered for after the incident, because then it makes no difference, because you're going to be covered in terms of only what the policy says. So bottom line is talk to your insurance, use some of these questions, and you just feel sure of what you're covered. And if you decide you don't want to be covered, then that's okay. At least you know then what you have and you don't have. So realizing it was a 20-minute talk, but we want to make sure to get some of these questions to you so that you can ask. So with that then, I appreciate you listening, and hopefully some of you will go and talk to your insurance agents and make adjustments as you deemed necessary. So with that, I'll say thank you very, very much.